Time for Law and Disorder.
I demand a lawyer.
With attorney Jeff Kaufman on 101.1 WJRR.
We are Orlando's rock station. Jeff Kaufman, a partner at Kaufman Lynd, fine firm here in Central Florida. If you or someone you know has been injured for any reason whatsoever and you think you might have legal representation needed, but you're not sure, Jeff's a good guy to call.
And great guy to go to. His direct email's jeff@whenyouneedus.com. Again, that's jeff@whenyouneedus.com or pound 546 on your cell. Cool thing is, and Lynch, you pointed this out last week, a lot of times Jeff will tell you whether you need a lawyer or not to save you the money so that, you don't call somebody else and they go, oh, yeah, come on in and start firing up a case.
You're not there to string anybody along.
Mm-mm. No, it's pointless. A lot of times people just want to know where they stand. And hopefully we can do that for them.
Good.
Jeff, couple things to ask you about, but we get some listener questions that have come in. But there's two things in the news here I wanted to hit you with. One of them is local here, and the other is just a general thing that some folks might want to be aware of. Remember the suitcase suffocation death in Winter Park?
Yeah, with a young lady. Allegedly.
They were playing hide and seek, and her fiance got in the... well, anyway.
Except she videoed it on her phone.
It was supposed to be like sexy time or something, wasn't it?
She is now burned through 7 court-appointed attorneys, having issues with all of them. Now she's looking to try to dismiss the 8th court-appointed attorney, and she comes up with all these reasons why they shouldn't be representing her in this. Now, she's locked up through all this, so
right.
I have no gripe there.
Time served, yeah.
Is there any end to where a judge will finally go, look?
Yes. A judge eventually will say, listen, I'm sorry. I understand that there's a problem and you have a right to proper representation, but you've burned through 8 of them, 7 of 8 of them. That's a problem.
And all of them say the same. We don't know what she's talking about. We're here to try to help her. And
how does she get rid of him? She say stuff like, he has a vested interest in luggage.
She fires him. She says to the judge, listen, I think our interests are not the same. I think there's
nothing to do with luggage.
He was a luggage salesman before this. He knows how the handles work. I don't trust him.
I can't even imagine. I mean, there are some things that you want to do in a trial like this that you have to set up. But it's going to be tough because it's in the backyard. Everybody knows about the case. It's going to be a tough one.
Then I saw this. Those who utilize Airbnbs, or perhaps maybe you have an Airbnb that you rent out. Mm-hmm. North Carolina woman is learning the potential pitfalls of renting an Airbnb long term to some clients. These folks, this is in the Durham, North Carolina area, rented out her Airbnb, stayed for several months. That was the agreed upon time. Would not leave afterwards.
Squatters.
Refusing. They've now turned into squatters, and Airbnb is not helping her whatsoever. They're like, you need to turn to the police or whatever. Police say, This is what the longer they stay, the more they have the rights.
The more rights they have. Absolutely.
On an Airbnb.
Is it? Airbnbs are meant to be a week, 2 weeks. The problem is then they become, what's the difference between somebody renting a place for 6 months? That's a lease.
So now you're going to have to go through the same steps as like a traditional landlord would have.
Well, you have changed the philosophy. You're not a weekly renter or a weekend renter. You are a long-term lessor. It's like going, hey, listen, now you're month to month. What's the difference between month to month? Airbnbs weren't meant for that. Airbnb that's not their job to go, okay, so you want to rent your place through us for long-term. That's not what we do. It's like car rentals, for example. You're not supposed to rent a car for 6 months. That's why they limit the time you could rent it to under 30 days.
They just need to have it in all states like it is in Florida now, where they're not playing around with these squatters. They'll kick your ass right out of the house.
Depending on the state you're in. For example, some of the more liberal states have issues concerning they don't want people to be taken advantage of by the landlords and everything else like that. That's different than the Airbnbs. And you're not going to have this federal law go across the board for every state because that's something that's normally reserved to the states.
All right, what do we got, Taco?
All right. Does Jeff do VA benefits?
No, I don't.
No. Do you know anybody that can steer him in the right direction?
If you go to the Florida bar, and then say VA benefits, that'll pull up. It's a very set kind of practice. So people who do that, that's their thing, and that's normally what they only do. So yeah, it's very complicated. There's a lot of things that go into it.
Got it. got injured on the job, had surgery, and now my wrist is popping more than it used to. Can I go after the doctor?
It depends. Depends on the situation. I mean, what medical malpractice works pretty simply. You know, did the doctor do something unreasonable that no other doctor would do in that situation? And was that the cause of your injury? I mean, because something doesn't work anymore because of a specific surgery doesn't mean the doctor did something wrong. You know, certain ailments, that's the way it works. Certain things don't heal.
But she'll have to have a fellow person in the medical industry testify to that, right?
Exactly. I mean, I had somebody contact me the other day. The doctor left in a mechanical piece, one of the metal pieces, and he left it in. And he should have taken it out. And she was suffering. She goes, listen, it felt like I had pins and needles. And I went back, I got an x-ray, and they showed that they left this thing in me. Ooh. Now, this was a very well-known doctor, and he's a very good doctor, but that's just bad.
I mean, if you have a long day of golf the day before, you're a little tired out, why not? You might need a scalpel.
The nurse sitting next to you is counting everything. She's supposed to, every gauze, every piece of gauze, every this. You don't leave something like this in.
I'm picturing, like, we've all got our little wrench socket kits at home.
Yeah.
Where'd that 8th fitting? I knew I had
the 8/10 millimeter.
Right.
Oh, man, I left it in that guy's butt.
Right.
Yeah, when you leave something in, that's a bad thing.
I yearn for the day to have a scalpel left in me. Don't worry about that text. My stepmom takes care of my bedridden father. We recently had a falling out. Can she legally keep me from seeing my dad if he lives with her, but my dad wants to see me?
Woo. I've actually had to deal with this a couple times, and it can be a problem because you have to go to the court then, and then have a judge make this ruling. And a lot of times if the father has the ability to make this decision, then yes, but you might have to go to court to have this heard. So, yeah, it sucks. I'm sorry that you and your stepmother, or whatever you want to call her, don't get along. But it is not unusual.
You have no idea how close to home this is hitting for me.
As soon as I read it, I went,
Pat's like going.
You have no idea how close.
Yeah. And you know what?
It happens all the time. I've seen this happen, and it's sad, and I wish it didn't. But, people get a life.
Family can be the worst, dude.
Family sucks. I mean, you're always arguing. People contact me all the time. Dead people's money is even worse. When somebody dies, man, everyone comes out of the woodwork. That's why get your wills taken care of. Do what you need to do because people are crappy.
What did I tell you, Pat, about probably 15 years ago? My father, I think it was probably almost 30 years ago when I was a kid. My dad said, look, no matter what happens, never argue over family money. Do not do it because he had seen it happen, and I've given that advice to so many friends and coworkers.
Some
in the
of
past.
The best people have the inability because they're like, well, why does he get it? Why don't I get it? They argue over pets. They argue over clothes. They argue over everything. Be responsible. I have a thing on my website. It's free. It's a free will. Go on, fill it out so that everyone at the end of this, they'll know what they get.
Yeah, whenyouneedus.com.
That's a whole different part of the conversation. The part that really still gets me and I'm never going to get over is the whole, sorry, you can't come in to see him. He's like on his deathbed and would like to see us. Oh, man.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And the problem is, but then I've had other issues too where the person wanting to see him is kind of a scumbag and is always trying to put papers in front of him.
Yeah. Hey, sign this while you're not. Do I have to return to court in my child support, or will it be automatic when my son turns 18 next month? Like, do they need to go back in and say, hey, little Jeffrey's turned 18?
Well, as far as little Jeffrey's concerned, you got to look at the order, the final order signed by the judge. You got to look at it, and it'll be very clear what you have to do. So you have to follow that stuff to the T.
Oh, God, yeah. Especially, you made it this far through all those years.
Tell Barry that our free will is still on the site.
Yes, the free will kit is still on the website. It's whenyouneedus.com. That's a great site to go to.
See, Barry, if you're planning to off your wife, it's not a good thing to say it on the radio.
Stop.
Just saying. Just,
do we have time for another?
Real quick,
okay.
Yes.
My job doesn't allow firearms on the property, even in our own vehicle. Is that a restriction of my rights?
No. That's a restriction of your business. Any business can say no. If you noticed it, there are some businesses where on the side of the door it says, do not bring firearms. private companies, private this. They can say, hey, listen, you can keep your rights all you want, but you're not working for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a choice of every business owner. There's a difference between saying, hey, listen, there's religious freedoms, and the right to bear arms is secondary to the other rights. So
okay,
be careful with that.
If you want to get in touch with Jeff directly, by the way, if I didn't get to your question at 22526, I'll print it out. Don't worry, and we'll get to it next week. It's Jeff at whenyouneedus.com. That's his direct email, Jeff at whenyouneedus.com. If you miss it, text me. I'll hit you up with it. Or pound 546 on your cell.
I still don't know how that guy ever got in that suitcase.
I do, because he was dumb. Men do dumb things for sex.
Yeah.
Especially when they're drunk. She convinced him, this is going to be hot.
That would be sexy, dude.
Now, listen, when you're drunk, I got a couple too much, but I ain't getting in a suitcase.
I don't know.
I've done some things I'm not proud of, but you ain't going to get me into a suitcase.
Jeff Kaufman.
I wouldn't even fit into a suitcase.
Kaufman and Lynd. Police wrote a song about that, right? Man in a suit.
Lynch and Taco. On demand, download the iHeartRadio app.